Welcome to Business Amplified with host Kevin A. Dunlap.
This podcast is for small business owners aiming to amplify their enterprises.
Explore strategies to play a bigger game by becoming an author, public speaker, podcast host, or expanding your brand in other ways.
Elevate your business on Business Amplified.
Well, everybody, and welcome back to Business Amplified. Today, we've got a wonderful guest. I'm just getting to know this gentleman, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say about some of the things that he's been doing over the last few weeks and few months, and even, possibly even the last few years. So today, we have a gentleman by the name of Kyle Goodnight. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
So, Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What is it that you do, and why is it that you do that?
Well, my name's Kyle Goodnight, spelled with a K in the middle. That's why I'm Kyle. So my parents named all of us kids Kenny, Christy, Kelly, and Kyle to remember the K in the middle of our last name. However, you can find me pretty much anywhere typing in nighttime as well. Good nighttime or Goodknight as in knight in shining armor. But I don't perceive myself as a knight in shining armor. But my name's Kyle Goodnight. I am a paramedic, a full-time paramedic. I've been in the healthcare field for the past 26 plus years. I was a respiratory therapist. I still am a respiratory therapist. I just don't practice it clinically right now as a separate job. But I've been in the healthcare field for a little over 26 years. And when it comes to, with that process, even in the healthcare field, you only work 3 days a week and then you're off for 4. In the EMS industry where I work, I'm on for 24 hours at a time, and then I'm off for 48. So that leaves time to do other things. Extrovert, someone who's an extrovert and a type A personality, I have like 3 or 4 jobs, right? I just always have something going on. So I'm a handyman. So I've kind of created my own business being a handyman, but that's beaten me up a little bit. So I'm trying to peel back a little bit from that. I'm also a voiceover actor. I have for about the last 6 years. 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to pursue that. Became a voiceover actor. I've had a national commercial. I've done countless e-learning. I'm in my first book right now. Actually, I've got 2 books that are cooking right now. And I've done a lot of stuff, video game character voices and whatnot. Santa calls. During Christmas, I offer up my Santa calls so I can, ho, 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 hello, Bubby. I'll talk to their child as Santa. So it's one of those fun, it's just like a fun thing, not knowing what it was going to lead me to. I'm now in the process of creating a new business. And it's going to be like everything combined, right? My voiceover work is going to help me do the video and the audio recordings of it. My background in EMS is going to give me the chance to talk to the people that I'm targeting, which is, first responders. My own struggles in the PTSI realm, post-traumatic stress incident. I never had a disorder, but they've launched a new word and a new labeling, PTSI, incident or injury, where it affects us still. So I had my own situation where I came through it, I got help, and I came on the backside of it. And now, because I am an educator for my whole entire career, I was also an educator in healthcare and my EMS career. I'm creating something now that I can bring out and put all of my talents into trying to save first responders and get them to have a balanced life. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. That's who I am. I'm a father of 2, married, live in the Midwest, that whole I got 5 dogs. So it's not 2.5 kids. I have 2.8 kids because my 2 children, and then they're in college, of course, but then my 5 dogs are definitely, they're equal. They're probably worse than having kids because one's a brand new puppy. So
Well, you got to love that puppy energy.
Oh my gosh, she's right there. I mean, she's laying down right behind me. I could put her on screen if you like, but no.
Well, so it sounds like you have a very varied background. I mean, I'm kind of just so that about my parents. My parents had 3 kids. We were also my mom wanted 3 daughters, and she wanted to name them all with K's, but she got 3 sons. So there's Kenneth, my older brother, myself,
Yep.
Kevin, and my younger brother, which
So
shares
we're
the
all
same name
K's.
as you,
That's
is Kyle.
funny. Yeah.
They're okay. So,
Oh, that is, see how the universe puts people together? That's amazing.
probably never had anybody like that tell you that before. Even using the same letter.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
But yeah, I mean, I see how, when you have a very varied background, that can make some very unique things for you. Like you say, you're doing the EMS stuff, you're doing the voiceover, but now you can create, like say, online training courses using your skills that you learned from your being a voiceover actor. Like for
Right.
me, my background included when I was young, I joined the Navy, and I ended up living overseas for 4 years. So, just being around other cultures, and where I'm the minority, I don't speak the language, and I was stationed out of Japan. So,
Wow.
just being around that. However, when I went to college, one of the things that shocks most people is that I lived in Wilmington, North Carolina from 2000 to 2003. And one of the things I used to do there that really changed my life was I got into the stunt industry. So I
Oh,
learned a lot about controlling risk, controlling fear. Because if you're afraid to go and do something, and then and you have to go when the director says
let's go. Yeah.
action, then you've got to. So if you hear okay and you're nervous, you always the director yells, "Quiet on set, roll camera, roll sound."
Yeah.
Action.
And
Like
you got to do
that's
it.
your cue. Like okay, you got to do it.
I have a friend of mine from, well, I haven't talked to him in years, but he was a high school, graduated from high school with me, Mark Odgers, and he's a stuntman out in Hollywood and a
Mhm.
photographer, and it's pretty cool. He's been on David Letterman. If you've ever seen the kid or the guy back, well, he's not. It's been years since David Letterman's been on, but if you've ever watched it and you saw someone do like trampoline and slam dunking balls, he also did
Mhm.
like sports dunking too, like at like LA Lakers games and stuff like that. So he's and he's a voice actor too. Go figure. I haven't talked to him. We haven't plugged back into each other for years, but he was a stuntman. So you're now only the second stuntman I know. Sometimes I feel like
Well,
a
well,
stuntman when I'm doing handyman work, though. Jeez.
oh yeah, I'm sure you're hanging upside down while.
Oh, well, that's also in the EMS. There's times I'm hanging upside down in the side of a car, getting cutting a car seat out to get the baby out. So
Oh wow. Well, I
yeah.
mean, but the thing is, what I have learned is that some of our unique skills that we have, we can very much just reconfigure it and then be able to use that in the stuff that we're doing now. And this is what this show is all about, is about taking chances. Like when you mentioned earlier that you never thought about becoming a voiceover actor, and then you pushed yourself, and now you've done films, you've done video games, you've done other things, and now you can use those skills in other things that you can do in your future endeavors, in your future business.
Right, right. Yeah, and the voiceover acting, through that every year I plug in training, so one year I plugged in training from Roger Love. He's a voice coach. He's a very famous voice coach, and I went through a 3-day seminar of his, and it talked about inflection and delivery and tonation and head voice and chest voice and that just like I thought because I was a voice actor and I went through my training with that, I was like, okay, I can just do whatever I need to do. But having that seminar really helped me understand how much more I could do, not just in my voiceover stuff. He does a lot of stuff for actors and people that do public speaking. And now eventually I want to get into public speaking. I want to be keynote speakers and talk about the stuff that I'm building, right? So having that class, and eventually I want to dive in deeper with him and get one-on-ones or group sessions with him. But he'll talk about different ways of capturing your audience through your voice and through the way that you throw the tonation out there into the room. So that was one thing that I learned before I even thought I was going to be doing this course that I'm creating, and even had a inclination that I want to do public speaking. Not that I'm afraid of public. I was in medical sales and I used to go train all the time and public speak essentially when I train, doctors and respiratory therapists and EMS on the products that I used to sell. But this class that I took for voiceover is now easily going to translate into my public speaking and my teaching, and then online teaching, completely different. One thing that I tried during this building of my course, it was originally supposed to just be recorded. Sit down, record your course, put it up as modules. Well, I sat down and I did a trial, and I watched it back and I'm like, oh no, no, no. I cannot put this out. That is horrible. I was out of my comfort zone. My comfort zone is being able to look at somebody real, see their look on their face, smile with them, oh yeah, and call their name out during a class, call on them during a class. I do better in front of people in real life, like physically in front of people. That's my jam, right? However, with this new world of Zoom and what COVID did to make everybody, very proficient at Zoom, you know, it's grown exponentially about how I can operate through this. And then the Zoom stuff will then grow me into the public, one-on-ones or face-to-faces, right? But it's very similar. And I did a webinar one time and recorded it and watched myself back. And I was like, okay, now there's Kyle. That's the guy who people want to get trained by. That's the guy that I know who I am when I'm in front of people. So that, just not even knowing it, that class 3 years ago that I took for 3 days and kept myself in this room for 3 full 8-9 hour days. I took day off work. I dove in deep into it. Didn't know how much it was going to actually affect what I'm going to be doing now. And so you just never know. Sometimes you're like, well, why did I do that? Well, I don't know. The answer will come later, right?
Well, and the thing is, when I had a podcast back in 2016, it was called Life's Little Lessons. It was to promote my second book. So it was
Okay.
all just about me talking into the microphone. And one of the things I've learned with podcasting or anything is you have to do it on a regular basis. You have to be consistent. And when I did I did that show in 2016, I launched the show. A week later, I launched the show. A week later, I launched the show. A month later, I launched the show. 5 weeks later, I launched it. So I became very inconsistent. But I loved the name Life's Little Lessons. So like,
I do
because
too.
all
That's
these
great.
little
I'm like,
things.
darn it, that's a good one.
Well, I liked it that one because it means a lot, but it's also it's LLL. It was three
Oh,
L's.
yeah.
So it's L, 'cause I call it L cubed. I
Okay.
never told anybody that, but that's what I called it.
Okay. L
And
cubed.
then I
Yeah.
remember this was in like September 2017. I had stopped doing the show like back in April or May of 17. And I was out hiking when I was living in Las Vegas, and I was thinking, I really like the names Life's Little Lessons. It says, how can I use this show again and then make sure that I was consistent? Like, oh my gosh, season 2, this could be season 2, and that was like a big light bulb. Like every TV show has season 1, season 2. Like,
Yeah,
why not?
exactly.
But
Exactly.
it was like an epiphany. And then I
Yeah.
said, how can I have a show where I know I can be launching episodes on a regular basis and not be worrying about the content? I go, guests. Oh my gosh, I can have guests. The guests will bring the content.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole Zoom world and all the different, Riverside FM and Boomcaster and StreamYard, all of those things that have popped up for this video conferencing thing has just exploded the podcast industry. I have a
Yes.
podcast already. Elevate is the name of my podcast, but I don't spell it with 2 L's. I spell it with an 11. So the 11 is in the place of the L. So that was just homage to Tony Robbins' group I was in during one of his trainings. I was in group 11, and 11 has there's a lot of stuff about the number 11 in general, like in the, spiritually and, just spatially. 11 is a very unique number. And I ended up asking the group, hey, I started a podcast called Elevate, where our intention is to have people who elevate themselves or who elevate others now after they elevated themselves to another level, have them on and do interviews. Well, I really like that name. And then I came up with the 2 ones to represent the on duty and the off duty life of the first responder. So I'm now rebranding the
Okay.
name Elevate into a first responder resilience podcast, where I'll have guests on that, we'll talk about anything I could really have guests on that will be able to talk about anything that anyone could probably put in their life, but we'll specifically, dive in. I've got some echo. We'll specifically dive into, how it can affect the first responder and what it would do to help reduce the stress of a first responder, whether they're on duty or off duty life. So, I have 6 episodes already of Elevate where I interviewed other people, and now I'm getting ready to start interviewing people for it as a first responders course or first responders podcast. And so I'm like, okay, season 2, like that's like, you just gave me a good idea. I'm like, season 2 of Elevate, we've changed our name. We haven't changed our name, we've changed our focus. So
Well, the thing is, if you do change your name, you just call that as a rebrand.
a rebrand, yeah. And that's, I've thought about that, I've come up with a company name that, but I'm like, man, no, I keep on going back to Elevate. I've got a nice, cool logo where the 11 kind of, subconsciously, the 11 kind of looks like the Twin Towers, which was a huge moment in time for first responders. Negative, but, a negative first thing. But I think that's a lot of where the world started seeing, or the country started seeing, the what we do, like the sacrifices, like those men and women went into that building most likely knowing it was going to collapse to try to save
Mhm.
people. That's they first responders typically put themselves in front of anybody,
Right.
right? They put themselves first to help, and but then they have to deal with the consequences on the backside, and that's where I'm very, very excited to help with is how do we how do we package the stress that we see not only in our work life but in our family life, because first responders have a 75% divorce rate. That's unacceptable. We have a 30% chance more to be substance abusers, with alcoholism and drugs. Our suicide rate is not good. Police officers are actually more likely to die from their own gun than they are from the perpetrator or the bad guy. That's mind blowing. That has to stop. We need to get that down to zero, right? We need to be able to. The big thing is about it is, myself included, it's doing a little bit better now since COVID. I've asked a couple of people that run programs for paramedic and fire and police academies, and they do sprinkle some stuff in about your own personal mental health, but they I didn't have any mental health training. Anybody that's in the industry now, prior to the 5 years ago or so, they don't have mental health training for us, how we package things properly, how we can build resilience inside of ourselves during our career. That's never been addressed. And that's what I aim to do. I aim to like address that, with through this.
I mean, I really can't imagine what they go through. I mean, I can imagine that a little bit because I was kind of a first responder myself when I was in the Navy.
Oh
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
part of the aft fire crew, so I was the one in the yellow banana suit.
yep,
And we had turned off all the AC on the ship because the fire could if there was a fire, it could travel through the ventilation.
right.
And on my first ship, that was on my first ship. And at one point in time, we were the ones escorting the tankers because I was in the Navy from 85 until 1990. So I was on my first ship from 86 through the middle of 88, the middle, like July of 86 to July of 88. And back then, that was before the Persian Gulf War, but we
Right
were
before.
escorting the oil tankers into the through the Persian Gulf because Iran, Iraq were at odds with each other, and they had mines in the water, and they were trying to blow up the oil ships, the tankers.
Mm,
So we were on well we were in I forget what's called like general quarters mode for like 5, 6, 7 hours and no ventilation, wearing the big banana suit. Like, oh my God, this is just miserable.
you,
But I do recall a couple of times when because you'll hear general quarters, fire in the number one boiler room, general quarters. This is a drill. So, but we're still we're going through the thing, and then I remember one time they were timing us, to see that we were doing it, and we were just like getting it under the radar. And then they said one time, like, general quarters, lube oil leak in number one engine room. This is not a drill.
yeah, a little bit different emotion, right?
Okay, we got. I mean, I remember I was on the on the hose. I was like the number two on the hose, and we had to go into a smoky engine room, which had a real a lube oil leak that
Yeah.
we had to try to
Dang.
contain. Now it was very smoky. There was no fire that we could see, but we ended up putting it out. But that's my one and only experience of being kind of a first responder.
Oh,
But I
absolutely.
remember I was like, this. I mean, I could die here.
Right. Well, but
So,
just to like to let your audience know that it wasn't just the incident, right? Like you were still a first
Mm.
responder prior to it, right? You were still in the mode on the ready at a heightened level, and that's a stressor, right? And whether it be a drill
Few
or not,
years.
and then you could, okay, now I'm not on duty, even though it was on a boat or on a ship. Okay, I'm not on duty this moment, or you may have always been at the ready. Like you may have always
You have
had
to
to
be always
be.
at the other end.
Yeah, you had to always be at the ready, which, well, at least I get to come home, at least
Mm.
I'm not expecting my tones to drop to go on a run to save someone's life right now. I'm sitting in my house, right? So you never had any downtime of that next level, that heightened, that what's the
Mm.
word I'm looking for? That readiness, you bring your readiness up when you're on duty, your vigilance, when you get a call, okay, is this a car accident? What am I gonna have to deal with at the car accident? I'm gonna have to deal with, electrical wires. I'm gonna have to deal with the car maybe being on fire. Am I have to gonna be dealing with the car down in a ditch in a creek? I've been on all runs like that. And you bring yourself up for work, but then you get to come down when you come home, ideally. But someone like you who was on a ship that was always at the ready, you always had to have so you felt there was you were you, don't kid yourself. You had higher stressor levels when you were even just on that without even any drills, or even during the drills. It was another level. And I guarantee you they didn't teach you how to like wind down from that or how to
No, well,
how to
that's still the 80s, of course not.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, because
that's
if we were at sea, you even if you were off duty, you were still on duty.
right. Right. If you're at sea,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. The only time you had really any solace, like if you had any, port time and got to go off the boat and go see the
Yeah.
town or
Well,
something.
even if we had shortly, we still had at least one of every 3 days to be on ship. And then when I
Yeah.
was on my second ship, I was what they call duty A gang, which basically meant if I was on ship, I was on call 24 hours a day because I was the one that would be if there was a fire on ship, a flooding on ship, something on shore. I'm the one in damage control leading the entire crew. So,
Right.
but that was the only one I was. I mean, I was on duty on ship. I wasn't on fire on my second ship. But when I was in port, I was even on duty then.
Right. Oh,
So,
exactly. Yeah. So you get it. Yeah, you get it.
yeah, it was a while ago. I never even thought about that. That was a first responder. I said, I'm
Absolutely.
just
100%.
pulling fire
No, you
watch.
were absolutely. No, you were.
Okay. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
bringing that to my
you're
attention.
if you're a ex first responder, you're more than welcome to join my Facebook group. No, because
Okay.
you
Well,
were, yeah, yeah. So
tell us a little bit about because I know you're starting a new business and what you've done with say with the voiceover acting and the stuff with the first responder. What would you say are some of your biggest challenges that you've come across, either yourself or the people that you're working with?
sure, sure. Mainly for me, one of my biggest challenges through this process was uh, procrastination. Just I'm ADHD. ADHDers typically have a procrastination issue because we can procrastinate right up to the last minute and still get stuff done. You know, I've got to, it is my job today to clean the kitchen. I guarantee you, I'm not cleaning that kitchen until about 5:05. My wife gets home at 5:15, right? No, so just because I've got other things going on. But I've been trying to work on my procrastination. That's been a big challenge for me. My course, I started this course process and building this course and working with a coach to build the course back in June, and we're now sitting at February, and it's not launched yet. That's there was some decent amount of procrastination in the beginning. What that stemmed from, I've unpackaged a little bit better, and I've had to say no to some important things and important people. I've had to say no to them doing stuff for them and with them as a collaborator, so I could have time to not procrastinate on stuff that I am now, passionate about. So, there was some struggle during that. I had to disappoint a couple of people with that I was already pretty heavily into helping do some of the stuff that they were doing, but I found that I was so involved with that I wasn't putting any time in the stuff that I wanted to build, even though I thought I could. I wasn't able to. So, that's one of my biggest challenge during building this course. And but yeah, that's I mean, the procrastination is real, and being able to cope and deal with it has been a challenge, but I think I'm not over it. I don't want to ever say that I'm over procrastination because it's the daily thing. It's a moment by moment thing. But I definitely have learned how to package things differently and make sure that the prioritization is in a better place.
Okay. Well, and the thing is, I think a lot of people suffer from procrastination. I was never much of a procrastinator. I learned that when I was in college. Like say they say this is Monday, and they say, okay, you need to write this paper, and it's going to be due Friday next week. So basically, in about 2 weeks. And by Wednesday of the first week, I was already on my first draft.
Me, no, I was Wednesday before the due date doing it. Well, and I packaged it properly. I've spoke to a few people and gotten some help with like I've actually dove deep into why I am this way. And one of the things that they told me, and this could help your listeners that have procrastination issues if they've never heard this before, if they have heard it, it's just a reiteration, is we didn't people who procrastinate don't have consequences. They get their stuff done
Hmm.
because they hyper focus on it in the end, and there's no true consequences for the procrastination. And when he told me that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I have never had anything like I have never had any major consequences for procrastinating in, things in my life. Maybe small things, like, oh, I didn't fill out my time card, so I got wrote up, but that was like, okay, that's not a big deal, because it didn't like, there was no like deep consequences from it. I didn't lose,
Hmm.
a marriage from it, stuff or whatever. There wasn't anything that caused pain. I didn't lose the job. Yeah, I got wrote up, but okay, well, now I'll just make sure that I do my my time card better now. Okay, that fixed me, that it did what it was supposed to do. I was corrected, so but like there wasn't any true like deep seated consequences for the procrastination. So you get used to it and you're like, I can get this
It's a
done in
learned
another
behavior.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always looked at it like because people like that I was like brown nosing or something like that because I was getting my stuff done early, and then that Wednesday, that Tuesday, that Wednesday when they're starting to just freak out like I'm done.
Yeah, yeah, no.
I'm just gonna
Well,
rest and relax.
and here's just to piggyback on that, when I was in respiratory therapy school at college, um, I would get together and do study groups, right? And
Mm.
buddy would always, "Hey, Kyle, how, what have you studied so far?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "We're here to study now." And he's like, "No, no, no, I've been studying all week. Like, what have you studied so far so I can make sure that I'm covering my bases?" I'm like, "I don't know. I was hoping we could study tonight. That's what I'm telling you. We came for a study session." And he's like, "You haven't studied all week?" I'm like, "No. So this is the first time you're studying?" "Yeah, bro, this is the first time I'm studying. The test is tomorrow." Like, "I know." I'm like, "I'm going to study tonight, right?" There's no consequences because I would always get a C or better, right? Like, I don't know if it
Mm.
was just I retained stuff from the class and that's just how I learn. I'm a visual learner. I'm a hands-on learner. I'm not a bookworm. I'm not a book learner per se, but and what would suck is, and it was horrible for him, poor Kurt. I would get better grades than him on most of the tests because even though I only studied the night before.
Here's that reminds me back when I was in college. I remember because I was a math major, so I would actually hold study groups. So that so I say if I could teach it to my classmates, then that means I really understood the stuff. And so
Right.
we know we're doing a differential equation class or calculus 3 or something along those lines. And I remember this one girl, I think her name was Galena, and she's like, I just don't get this stuff. I don't get this stuff. And this like, well, the test is tomorrow, so let's just cram, cram, cram. And in the end, she made better grades than I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, it's all
like, this is not
that
fair.
yeah, not that I can recall it now. I recalled it 12 hours later, but I can't recall it now. No, no, it was respiratory class, so I recall a lot of that. No. So,
Mm. So you told me before the show that you have a reoccurring event you have on a monthly basis. Can you tell us
yeah,
a little bit about
so
that?
yeah, what that is basically it's a free webinar where I share, some valuable information I pull some valuable information on a monthly basis from my bigger course. When you're dealing with resilience training, it's a it's a new mindset and you got to have time. But the webinar is supposed to introduce that course to people, and it's a completely free webinar. They come and,
Okay.
you can come and get little nuggets that I will do on a monthly basis. Probably the first couple of months, it'll probably be the same content, same information, but we only retain about 10% of what we see when we first listen to something. So even if people come
Wrong,
back
yes.
time and time again, but yeah, it'll be on a monthly basis. The best thing to do to see the most present uh, 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 webinar that I'll be doing, or the time frame and the dates, would just be to go to my website, which is kylegoodnight.com. Is my website, my name. You can Google my name, Kyle Goodnight. Once again, Goodnight is spelled with a K, so Goodknight. You can also get to kylegoodnight.com if you forget the K. I bought both domains. I wish I would have
That's
gotten
always good.
both. I wish I would have gotten both Gmail addresses, and because there is another Kyle Goodnight, which is Night, and I've talked to him before, not in person, but we've chatted on Facebook. But he lives in Texas, which is right, because the Goodnight Loving Trail was Goodnight and Loving. So Charles Goodnight, and I can't remember what Loving's name was, but his last name was Loving. They had the Goodnight Loving Trail, which was back in the cattle times, was the trail from north to south to bring the cattle down. And there's a Goodnight, Texas, and he is a great something, great grandfather of some sorts, Charles Goodnight, at least how we trace things back. So we have a big lineage in Texas, but for some reason we added the K and they kept the K out. So, but yeah, so kylegoodnight.com. On there, if you want voiceover services, you can go to voiceover path, or if you want EMS, if you want first responder and resilience training, you can go to the first responder path. And the one thing that I thought that I was going to do once I got this course up and running was, then once I got first responders under control and fluent with first responders, police, fire, EMS, emergency dispatch, corrections, um, though I was going to then expand it into the hospital realm, because I used to work in the hospital, nursing, ER physicians, ER nursing, ER PAs, anybody in that critical care thing. However, through the process of meeting people over the last couple of weeks, a month or so, on networking events, I've met a lot of nurses that are doing, entrepreneurial things. And because they've
Mhm.
left the nursing industry because COVID destroyed them, right? And we're on the precipice of the nursing and the hospital industry, one, having a shortage big time on caregivers because they don't want to go back, and not recruiting well because people saw that, oh, if I become a nurse, I'm going to go into this complete crap show, when it comes to, what I'm going to be doing on the backside of it. So it was going to be something I like, probably, had a finger that went off into the nursing realm or the hospital realm, but I think that's going to be actually a little bit sooner than it was than I had planned. Like maybe even month 2, I'll open it up, and I won't specifically say first responder, or I'll say first responder and healthcare field to come get resilience training, because I found out through talking with some of them that they're having their PTSI was all of COVID, and that was 3 solid years of just complete, I
Mm.
luckily stopped working at the hospital 3 months before COVID hit. I stopped in like December of 19, and COVID hit in March. So I was like 3,
With
4
18.
months. Yeah, so I'm glad part of me was like, man, should I have worked in the hospital then? And I got offers to go work at other hospitals in the country for $10,000 a week. And I had to turn them down because, when you're already a first responder and you're working that job, you don't know if you're going into a COVID patient. I had a motorcycle accident one time, and come to find out the guy was COVID positive. He felt fine. He wrecked his motorcycle, not because of COVID, but because a deer came out, right? And we were with him, talking to him, all that stuff. And he had no signs or symptoms, but later on the report came back, hey, he was COVID positive. And we had to we had to go into quarantine. That was back in the beginning when things were a
Mhm.
little bit tighter when it came to all the what we had to do. Like I had to not be around my family, and because for 5 or 10 days, because I was with a patient that was COVID positive, even though I wasn't showing symptoms. That has all been a little bit different now, but it's one of those things where the nursing in the hospital realm, they saw the worst of the worst after we would bring them in, and which was,
Mhm.
we deal with people for 20 minutes, and sometimes it's devastating, and sometimes it's very helpful, but we, one of the things that is I've learned through talking to other first responders is there's a lot of people don't get follow-up, and my company luckily has a little button I press on my report that I say, hey, I want follow-up, so I can tell if I'm curious of why this person was sick, I can have a follow-up or how they're doing, or when a baby's born, like make sure, or when the heart attack goes in, make sure that we can follow up and make sure, the patient did better and got out of the hospital. So it's a little bit of closure, but when it comes to nursing, there's not much closure if you've got patients dying on you. That's the only closure. That's not good, right? So,
My mom was an RN nurse,
mhm.
and her before I joined the Navy, she was working in a hospital in the geriatrics ward, and
Yeah.
so obviously if you're in geriatrics, there's a good chance your patients are going to pass away on you.
Well, and that's the thing, during that time, I can tell you right now, through all of the time that I've worked in a hospital, more people go home from the hospital than don't, right? Like a hospital is not a place to go to die. I mean, it where people do get taken when they have an incident that they may be in jeopardy of that, but the majority of people get discharged from a hospital. Well,
Right.
that percentage changed drastically during COVID,
Oh yeah.
and it wasn't there was still more people leaving the hospital than weren't. However, it was still more than what we would have been used to. I mean, I remember even if they were in the ICU for 3 months and on a ventilator for 3 months, I've seen people, you know, come from the grips of death and walk out of the hospital. I've seen that, right? And
Hmm.
every time you go into a hospital working a situation where, let's say, you work 3 days that week and you come in on a Monday and then you work a Friday, Saturday, you have a little bit different clientele in your ICU come Friday. Some of the same people are there, but then you've got a rotation because people get better and they move out, right? And
Yeah.
I would remember hearing a story from one of my respiratory therapist friends that shared a situation early on in COVID. She's like, everybody's leaving the ICU in a body bag. This is not normal. This is not right. Like no one's being discharged. No one's being stepped down. This is not how it's supposed to be. So
Right. Okay. Well, how
sorry, I didn't mean to
is
go
so
grim
is
on
go
that. Sorry.
Um, that's all right. Well, the thing is, that you're providing a great service. So people that are in the first responders, people in the medical field, I probably would even say maybe pilots or air traffic controllers,
Yeah,
anybody
anybody
that
in a
runs
high
a
stress
stressful
job.
job.
Yeah, anybody in a stressful job. Part of my course is I talk about family first, and what a stressful job does to a family. And I have my own experiences. I've faced divorce twice now in my marriage. Luckily, my wife and I both saved our marriage two different times, and maybe even maybe 2.5, because there was one time that was really close. And when I came to her and I told her that I put my 2 weeks in at a new job that it was really really stressing me out. She's like, "Oh man," she goes, "I'm so glad that you said that." And I'm like, "Why?" And she goes, "You were about to get the ultimatum again." I'm like, "Oh, 12 years ago ultimatum?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "You were horrible." She's like, "I didn't you were getting ready to get like a smackdown." And I'm glad but so you put your 2 weeks in, so it's going to be better. I can already tell that you're lighter. I can already see that you have a weight off your shoulders, and I'm happy for you. Let's focus on the next thing. So it's one of those things where, you know, we want to make sure that us as first responders and anybody in high stress jobs, get taught how to package the stress properly. I carry a
Mm,
first aid bag when I go on a call, right? Operate on a protocol. I learned a protocol. My protocol when I go for a chest pain is pretty much the same on almost every chest pain. I do the same thing, right? I get used to what I'm supposed to do. I know right in my bag, I know where to go to get the aspirin. I know where to go to get the oxygen. Well, let's think about that in a mental health situation. How about we pre-plan our situations? When we get a stressful situation and it didn't feel right and now I'm on the backside of it, okay, how do I package that and put it in the right spot so I know that it's there and I know how to deal with it? Or I
mm,
need help and I need to go do some mindfulness exercises. Okay, well, that's in this zipper, hypothetically. That's in the side zipper is my mindfulness practice that I learned from Kyle. So I want to make sure that people have a backpack or first in bag or a go bag that they know where to go to get the stuff that they need to apply the tools and techniques so they can have resilience and fortify themselves against life's stressors, right?
Oh, wow. I mean, that is a good. I never really thought about that. I get it. The doctor that has his little medical bag, but a
Yep.
mental health expert that has their own proverbial
Yeah, virtual, if you
mental
will.
health
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah. And
Well,
the name of my course is Carry the Weight, Find the Balance. So you're gonna carry the weight. Us as first responders, we're carrying the weight. We're putting the backpack
mm,
on. We're carrying into the run, into the situation. The police officer's carrying his go bag during a situation that gets turned up. Even the dispatchers, they carry a backpack into work, most of them, and they have stuff for their day inside their backpack. So we all carry something into our job. And so carry the weight, but we need to find the balance. And finding the balance is what I teach.
and they can get out of you by just going to Kyle Goodnight with
KyleGoodnight.com. And
good
if
KNIGH.
Yep, and if they search my name on Google, I'm the first like 12 things that pop up. So I'm the only Kyle Goodnight spelled the way I spell it and that I've found in the world. I did a deep dive one time.
Well, I thought Kevin Dunlap was a very unique name, and I did go onto the International Movie Database at
Yeah,
IMDb.com,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and right now there's three Kevin Dunlaps on
Dunlap.
there,
I'm
and
I'm the
and you
only
if
Kyle
you
Goodnight in there. So
but and if you Google my name without the middle letter, which is why I use the middle letter, there's another guy named Kyle that's named Kevin Dunlap.
Mhm.
He is also in this book called the Murderopedia. So he's on death row in Kentucky. Like, yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to that guy. Or maybe I do,
And if you look at any pictures when he's in his orange jumpsuit, he's doing
Oh
this
my
weird look
God.
like he's like he's psychotic. Like, no, that's not me. It's Kevin A. Dunlap, Kevin Wayne Dunlap.
Yeah, yeah. Nope.
Anyway,
Kyle,
I want to say,
KyleGoodnight.com or Kyle Goodnight in Google, and you'll find everything about me. So,
oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing. And I do want the listeners to know that if you think that you might be a good guest to be on our show, we are looking for guests. If you just go to our one of our websites, to do a 15-minute pre-interview, that's going to be at www.optimalperformanceacademy.org/pre-interview with no hyphen. So again, that's optimalperformanceacademy.org/pre-interview. If you want to talk with Kyle here, go to Kyle Goodnight, spelled with a K for the K, or for the word night, at kylegoodnight.com as well. Now, Kyle, are there any last words that you would like to share with us before we go?
no, I appreciate you having me, and it's been a great conversation. I'm glad to have got to know you, and I'm sure we'll meet again and have another discussion on something else as I go through this and you go through your podcast and maybe I'll have you on. Well, I mean, no, I'm inviting you onto my podcast because I think that sitting here thinking about stuff, I could easily have you on my podcast and talk about some of the stuff that you're doing through your life experiences that will apply to first responders or the people that listen to my podcast. So I'll have you on.
Yeah, because
So
we'll get together after the show and we'll
yeah,
go and arrange that. And yes, I mean, the kind of stuff that I talk about is going to be more about how do you push your comfort zone to
yep,
expand
yep.
your business, writing a book,
Well,
starting a
because
podcast,
and here's
uh,
another thing.
creating a
You have to
program.
understand.
I mean, come
Well,
on, the program that's not only going to help Kyle himself because
right,
he's going through it as he's creating
right.
it, but he's also going to be helping other people as well.
Well, here's the thing, and this is where it's really cool. A lot of first responders, it's not the only job they have. A lot of, especially in the fire and EMS industry, the way that our schedules worked out, because we go 24 hours at a time, most places, some places do 12 hours, but either way, depending on how busy your department is, I think New York EMS and fire, they do 12-hour shifts and they have some sort of weird thing. We do have some people out in there in the world that do 72 hours on or 2 days on and 1 day off or 3 days off. There's a mixture, right? But nonetheless, a lot of if you were to poll first responders, a lot of them have a side business. I mean, I knew a police officer who ran a full-blown concrete company while he was a police officer. He, on his days
Wow.
off, he would be there working on the stuff, and then on his days off, he had his crew chief doing it, right? So, so you could speak like with your stuff about about business and pushing your stuff. There may be a first responder or someone listening that wants to start a business, but they don't know where or how to do it, and if they and you could speak on that. So everything's a lot of people don't. I think I don't think a lot of people that aren't first responders or don't know first responders, a lot of them don't realize that a lot of us have second jobs, you know, because like for
Well,
me, I only work
that's
121 days a week. I work every third day. So I have 121 days that I work if I don't take vacation. And then but the year is 365, well, 366 this year. But so 121 away from 365, you've got 200 and some days that you're off, and you could do other things, I mean, a lot of us decide to go ahead and make extra money and do something different, or work in another department, which I don't recommend. I recommend all first responders, their second job outside of their first responder main job, to be something different, so they're not getting double impacted or triple impacted, right? So,
well, and that is one thing I do tell people. Say, hey, if you want to start your own a business, a side hustle, whatever you want to call it, is that go ahead and start that side hustle, and
yep,
then once your side hustle or your secondary business exceeds the finances that you need from your first business,
yeah,
then you can make the decision of what to do next. You could
yeah,
quit, you could cut your hours back, or you can keep working.
yep.
Because everybody's going to be different. If you're 6 months away from a 20-year or 40-year retirement, don't quit your job. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, I'm 60. So that's another reason why I'm kind of creating this course right now is I'm 6 years away from my closest time to retire. And if I start getting speaking, well, when I start getting, I got to speak in the positive, right? When I start getting speaking gigs and going to conferences and being keynote speakers, that's all the stuff that I plan on doing. There could be easily a point in time where, yeah, it exceeds it. However, my insurance is through this company. My,
mhm.
my retirement is through this. So, but can I do this? Can I still do this for the next 6 years and still have this nice base and this nice foundation to come back to, and then still build and help people outside of it? And but it still includes the fact that I'm still in it, that I'm still going through all the same crap that I'm trying to teach, right? I'm utilizing what I'm teaching, right, on a daily basis. So
Absolutely.
sorry, that was a little bit long
Well,
for last words.
well, Kyle, I do want to say thank you for being here today. And I
My
mean, I
pleasure.
know I learned a lot. I didn't realize I was a first responder
There you
until
go.
today. Thank you for the, me finally realizing that over 30 years after I got out of the
Yep.
Navy. No, it's
So,
not too late. But
yeah,
anyway, I do want to say, everybody, I thank you for listening to our show. Please stay tuned for some of our other shows. If you like what you see, go ahead and share it, and or have other people come in, or let other people know so they can also come and join us. Well, Kyle, I do want to say thank you for being here today, and goodbye, everybody. Any farewells from you, Kyle?
just thanks everybody, and appreciate you having me on. Take care.
Until next time, be amazing.
Thanks for tuning in to another empowering episode of Business Amplified with Kevin A. Dunlap.
If you found value in today's insights, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the podcast.
Keep amplifying your business. And remember, your success journey is our inspiration.
Until next time on Business Amplified, go out there and make your business thrive.